everyone. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you for joining us. So I'm not going to lie. I kind of feel like this is the biggest episode I've ever done, only because it's now the most requested episode ever. And I hope I don't suck. Fine, let's just call it what it is. We're going to hope that we do well on this. So we are back. The Boston Marathon is now in the rearview mirror. In the history books, congrats to everyone who ran. Congrats to the winners. Yeah, our guy Kipchoge came in 6th place, I think it was. So that was mildly disappointing, just because I wanted him to win the whole thing. But as one of the wonderful Back of the Pack podcast ambassadors pointed out, Kipchoge and we shared the course for all of 31 minutes. He finished 31 minutes after I started. So, yay, that's something, I guess. But anyway, I'm just going to go over my entire weekend. I'm going to just tell you guys all about it. Some of it running related, some of it not. So hopefully you don't mind. But it was a wonderful experience. But before I jump into that, today, as I'm recording this, the London Marathon just finished. So congratulations to anyone who was at London who finished that. And just so you know, the ballot for 2024 is open right now. So if you have any desire to try and run London next year, you want to go out there right now and fill out the ballot and get in the lottery. So I'm already in the lottery. I will be out as soon as they reject me for the 7th straight year. But it's open here for a couple weeks, and they will announce who's in June. So we got that to look forward to. Yet another rejection. So anyway, all right, here we go. The Boston Marathon episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. Dun, dun, dun. No pressure. Anyway, okay, so we started last Thursday, and of course, I wanted to fly out of Kansas City and get to Boston as quick as I could so I could start to kind of explore and get to know the town and see things. So as soon as I wake up Thursday morning, bright and early, ready to go, get the email that the flight has been delayed and it now leaves in the afternoon. Well, great. So there was a fantastic start to the trip, but thankfully not a big deal. Was able to get up, finish getting packed, all ready to go. Headed out to the airport, stopped and got some food on the way, and then actually had a little bit of time to explore the new Kansas City airport, which if you have not been out there yet, they did a really good job. I really like our new airport. It's got a lot of restaurants. It's got a lot of bars, got a lot of places to sit. Looks very nice. You can tell it's very new. So good job to all those involved in getting us the new airport. It is quite lovely. So anyway, fly out of there. Direct flight. Kansas City to Boston. We land Thursday night. Bam. There we are. Because our flight was delayed, we didn't get to the hotel until, late. There was nothing to do. So checked into the hotel, ready to start Friday with the expo. So I was super excited. I love big race expos. They're some of my favorite things. So we get up on Friday morning and off to the expo. Zoom. And I got to tell you, and this is probably going to be disappointing to some, Friday was the best day ever. Friday in Boston was the best ever. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm at the expo. I got there right when it first opened. I was in the huge line of people. We were waiting for them to open the doors, and then we all flooded through. I went in, got my packet, which is super cool. That was the first thing you do. You get your packet, you get your bag, you get your official race shirt, you get all that cool stuff, and then you start to explore the expo. Now, some of you might have seen some pictures I posted, the cool 360 video that I put out there. And again, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, make sure that you follow the Back of the Pack podcast on Facebook and social media, because that's where we post a lot of the really fun stuff. So if you don't, you better get out there and give us a like. Do it. Do it now. But anyway, so there's some pictures out there from the expo. I bought an obscene amount of Boston Marathon merchandise. I got the backpack, which their backpack is actually really nice and awesome, and I'm so glad I bought it. More race shirts, got a pair of pants. I spent way more money than you need to, but this is going to be my only Boston, so I was going to make sure I got every piece of swag that I could possibly get. And then I'm walking around, and here's where the best thing happened. And this was so cool. And yes, I'm probably a big dork for this, and I don't care. I'm walking around, I'm looking at vendors, and I hear somebody say, "Hey, I listened to you." And I turn and look because I know that I do something that someone could listen to, although I was quite sure they weren't talking to me. And I was wrong. We actually met at the Boston Marathon Expo, a fan of the Back of the Pack podcast. Oh, so cool. She recognized my shirt, wanted to say hello. So a huge shout out to Kelsey. Thank you so much for making my entire trip, because that really did make my entire trip We talked for just a brief moment, and it was very crowded. We were right in the middle of an expo. I do believe she said that she and her running club listen to the podcast. So if you are in Kelsey's running club, thank you so much for listening. To Kelsey, you made my entire trip. We even took a selfie together. It was so cool. And yes, I'm a huge dork and I don't care. That made my entire trip. So Kelsey and Kelsey's running club, and I swear you said you were in Texas, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. But running club in Texas and Kelsey, thank you guys so much for listening and being fans, and then for yelling at me at the expo, because it was the best. It was the best thing ever. Hold on, let me see if I can get the cheer here. Do I have a cheer? Here we go. Yes, there we go. I invested in a little bit of podcast equipment here, so hopefully that cheer comes through. It's probably gonna be nice and loud for you too. So anyway, so that was the expo. The expo was fun, had a great time, got to meet Kelsey, got to visit some of the booths. It wasn't the biggest expo I've ever been to. I was a little surprised by its size, but there was still a lot of cool stuff. They had a lot of memorabilia up from previous Boston marathons, so that was really cool. Nothing real big for the 10-year anniversary of the bombing. I found that to be kind of surprising, but I also get how it's not like something to celebrate, it's something to be remembered. So I don't know, maybe that went into their planning or lack thereof for anything marking the anniversary of the bombing. Anyway, neither here nor there. So got done with the expo. After the expo, and this is non-running related, but wanted to do something while in Boston. So the wife and I went to the Boston Tea Party Museum. And again, I thought this was just going to be, maybe some paintings or some old-timey stuff from the Boston Tea Party, in 1773. It was the coolest thing. If you go to Boston, I highly recommend it. It's an interactive tour, an interactive museum. So your guide is playing a character. And so they wear the old-timey clothes, they speak in the old-timey way, and they kind of take you through this museum, but there's videos and you kind of follow the history, and there's actor portrayals, there's even virtual reality. And then I don't want to spoil the surprise, but there's some cool stuff with artwork. We're just going to go with that. There is actually a box that is on display that was used in the Boston Tea Party. It was like one of the only boxes that washed ashore and was recovered. So you actually get to see a very important piece of history. And then after the museum tour, we went and we had tea in the tea room. And so we had tea where the Boston Tea Party was, in Boston Harbor. You get to go on a recreation of one of the vessels that would have brought the tea. You get to throw some fake tea overboard, which is really cool. So if you go to Boston, I highly recommend the Boston Tea Party Museum. That was really, really fun. So after the museum, it was already getting it late into the late afternoon, evening. Went and had some dinner, and then we headed back because the next morning was the Boston Athletic Association 5K. So yes, I did sign up to run the 5K 2 days before the marathon. So get up on Saturday morning, I get ready, I take my Uber, no problems. Transportation in Boston was pretty easy. If you want to pay for an Uber, you can pay for an Uber. They also have train, there's buses, but really that town is not nearly as big as I thought it was. Really from tip to tip is only about 4 miles. There was never an Uber trip I took except from the airport and to the airport that was over 4 miles. Everything was 4 and under. So that is actually really, really convenient. So I took the Uber, got down to the 5K. I was there super early. If you guys know me, I'm early to every race, and I was infinitely more early than I needed to be for the 5K, but that's okay. I got there, I got my shirt, and then I kind of got to experience something I've never experienced before. They capped that race at 10,000 runners. I have never run a 5K with 10,000 people. I've never seen a 5K so big. It was massive. So I just kind of found a spot to park and just kind of watched as this huge park, the Boston Commons, just started filling up with runners. And I mean runners from all corners of the globe. There were people there from all over the place. We had runners of all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds. I mean, it was really cool. There were just a ton of people. It was a massive humanity. And it was a lot of fun. Now, another thing that I really got to enjoy, and I'm sorry to my teammates, the Kelsey at the Expo still wins, but I did get to meet a lot of my teammates from the Boston Athletic Association charity. The charity that I raised money for, scratch that, the charity that you all raised money for so that I could run Boston. We had a team of 20 other runners, I think. It was either 20 or 25, somewhere in there. And I got to start meeting them in person. And that was super great, man. I really feel like I walked away from Boston knowing a great group of people who were all passionate about that race and passionate about raising funds. And it was super fun. So I met up with a few of them who were also doing the 5K. And that was great. I got to meet them, put faces with names and things like that. And then we got into the starting corrals. It took forever. The elites were finishing the 5K before I even crossed the start line. So yes, they did try and go with a bit of a wave start, but just that amount of people, it was impossible to get everyone across the start line in any kind of a good time. So a lot of time in the starting corral, finally got to start the race, but with 10,000 people on a 5K course, it doesn't thin out. Like that thing did not thin out the entire time. It was just shoulder to shoulder running for a full 5K. It was nuts. So the 5K, you got to see some of the more historic parts of Boston. Beacon Hill is kind of where it started, which is like one of the oldest parts. You do a lot of running on that. And it's not an out and back. There is like a whole circular form to it. But there is a road you kind of go way down, turn around, and come way back. But after the turnaround and after you come back, you go under this bridge, which was really cool because all the runners, as everyone was passing under the bridge, and again, it was packed the entire time, both coming and going and coming. Everyone was screaming under this bridge because it echoed really well. So it was kind of like a scream tunnel, which was kind of fun. But after you go down that bridge and you come back up, then they take you on part of the course for the full marathon. So you get to do the very classic and the very well known, if you follow the Boston stuff, you take the right on Hereford and then the left on Boylston Street. So after we take that left on Boylston Street, which is like almost the 2-mile marker of the 5K, you ran through the actual Boston Marathon finish line. Now, I wasn't actually thrilled about it because I didn't want to cross it until the actual day of the race, until I actually crossed it after running 26.2 miles. However, it was really cool being able to run down Boylston Street when I wasn't dying from running a full marathon, when I was just 2 miles into a 5K. But we got to run down Boylston Street. We got to run through the finish line of the Boston Marathon. And then, of course, we kept on going until we got back to the finish line, which was in the Boston Commons for the 5K. So, finished that race, got my medal, super cool. After that, went back to the hotel, took a shower. Oh, and then that was the night. Duh, how did I forget this? That was the night or the afternoon where I went to a Boston Red Sox game. I am a huge baseball fan. I want to see all the stadiums. I've been to Wrigley Field, which is the second oldest baseball stadium in America, and now I've been to Fenway. Fenway is the oldest baseball stadium in the country, and it is beautiful. Like it was worth every penny I spent to go see that place. The stadium is awesome. I don't care at all about the Red Sox. Go Royals, even though the Royals are terrible this year. But the game experience was great. And so I did that on Saturday. And the reason I did that on Saturday was it was April 15th. April 15th was the official 10-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. So before the game, the Red Sox did a very wonderful tribute to the victims, to the first responders, to everyone affected personally by that event. Up to and including the ceremonial first pitch was done by 10 or more Boston bombing survivors, which was great. And you see these people out there. It was 10 years ago. The thing that bombing really did was, yes, it killed 3 people, but the damage that it did to those who survived. A lot of limbs lost. And again, I'm not trying to be graphic or depressing here. That's just kind of how the situation was. So there were a lot of people out there with artificial arms or legs. But you know what? They survived. And it was great. It was a really good moment. A lot of people very touched. And so it was awesome. There's a picture, again, on Facebook that I took from my seat of all of them lined up together to throw out that first pitch. That was awesome. I was glad that they honored them at the game, did a little video tribute, let them throw out the pitch. That was super cool. So a lot of people out there wearing their marathon jackets, a lot of people who were definitely ready to run the race on Monday. So felt like I was amongst friends out there. Then after the game, went and had drinks and dinner and, just didn't do a whole lot of anything. Sunday, Sunday, of course, that's the day before the marathon. So I knew I was not going to be going out, getting crazy, doing anything like that. The only thing I did on Sunday was take an Uber up to a hotel, and I had the official lunch with my teammates, with the charity team, the folks who organize it, and then all my teammates and some of their families. And that was fun because, again, got to meet more people. We got to just kind of talk, shoot the breeze, learn about each other's backgrounds, where everyone was from. We have, shout out to Toronto, a lot of people from Boston. Well, we had a St. Louis in there, and I try not to hold that against them. So there were people from all over, and that was really fun, just getting to know people better. And then we all had lunch together. And what was really cool, and this was a great surprise, apparently when they were asking us for our emergency contacts, they really wanted to contact people to get videos and messages for us runners that they could play at the event. And so, we're watching everyone's friends and family on these recorded videos saying good luck, this, that, and the other. And I was starting to think, okay, well, maybe no one from mine sent anything in. Well, I guess because I'm a W, maybe they did it alphabetically. Yeah. I can talk sometimes. I was at the very end, so that was really cool. So my wife and my daughter said hello. There was a little bit of a picture package. I kind of assumed that was for my oldest daughter. And then shout out to my boy Clint, my boy Sean for sending messages. I appreciate that. But that was really touching and like a great way to kind of end that meeting and then really start saying, hey, it's time to focus up. Because when that lunch was over, Sunday, about 3:00 in the afternoon, at that point, you're kind of getting down to the wire. It's like, all right, man, that marathon's coming up in a few hours. So it's almost go time. It's time to serious up. And so I took my Uber back to my hotel. Again, it's Sunday afternoon. I kind of very slowly and methodically started to put together Flat Kyle. And every runner knows about their flat alter egos because we all do it. So on the bed, I laid out everything I was wearing the next day. I had made sure all of it was prepared and together. And then I got to pin that Boston Marathon bib on my shirt. And I don't know if I can properly describe the feeling. It was a mix of excitement, a little bit of pride, whole lot of fear, and then just kind of bewilderment at what was about to happen. Because, and I'm going to sidebar a little bit here. We spent so long fundraising, and we spent so long with the anticipation and the preparation and the training runs and the training races and trying to do a little diet and exercise. We spend so much time focusing on other things that when there's nothing left but to focus on the race, it's almost hard to turn your mind to that. It's almost difficult to be like, there's nothing else. This race is all that is in front of me. And so as I was putting Flat Kyle together, it's like, there's nothing else. This is it. This is my final preparation right here. Pinning a bib on a shirt. And there is nothing more I can do. There is no more training I can do. There is no more dieting I can do. There is no more studying I can do. Like, it's on. So I got Flat Kyle all together, took a picture, posted it. Like, hey everyone, this is it. Like, this is as close as we're going to get. So I put everything in my chair, had it all ready to go, settled in the bed, turned on TV, and did the dumbest thing possible. I watched Netflix's documentary on the Boston Marathon bombing from 10 years ago. And hey, kudos to Netflix. You guys put on a great series. The footage that I saw was footage I'd never seen before. And I know a lot of it was kind of new to the public. Kudos to the Boston Police Department. There were certainly mistakes made, and I'll be the first to admit it. But ultimately, everything they did, they were trying to do to catch two killers who did, by definition, an act of terrorism at that event. So if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it. It's the Boston bombing documentary on Netflix. It was very informational. I'm not going to say it was entertaining. I was not entertained. I was informed. And so the way that they caught the bombers and just the way it all went down, it will surprise you. But again, watching that the night before running the actual race, maybe not the greatest idea. There's a couple moments I thought to myself, it's like, ooh, this is a little scary. But there was nothing, absolutely nothing that was going to stop us from getting to that finish line, documentary or not. So I watched that, and then it was time to try and sleep. And of course, the night before something so huge. Sleep, not much of a thing. Now, because we raised all that money through the charity, because you all raised that money through the charity, I had on my bib the VIP sticker. So I got a little bit of VIP treatment out there. And I'm telling you, it made a huge difference. So race morning rolls around. I do not take an Uber to meet all the other runners and get on the school buses that take you out to Hopkinton. Okay, that was not what I got to do. I took my Uber up to the VIP tent, which was outside the official race hotel, where I got to wait in a tent with chairs, with waters and Gatorades, with the teammates and all the other VIP runners. And trust me, there were a lot. Like, it was pretty cramped in there. But we got to wait for our own buses that took us up to the start line. Yes, we got to ride in very nice buses up to the start line, and that was very nice. Thank you to the Boston Athletic Association for doing that for all of its runners. So we take the bus and we head up there. Now, a little side story. To one of my teammates, who I hope she listens to this. We had a teammate as we're walking to the bus who stepped in a pothole and rolled her ankle the moment before we get on the bus to the start line of a marathon. And I mean, we're panicked. She's hurt. Her stuff goes flying everywhere. We pick her up. We gather up her stuff. We help her onto the bus. But I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she's not going to be able to finish this thing. But one of our teammates was a fireman, and he was trained in first aid. And then she herself, I'm not divulging names. She knows who she is. She herself didn't lose hope, didn't give up. We spent our entire time at the start line, where we got to wait inside, which was another great benefit. We got to wait in a building, so not exposed to the elements. She iced her ankle, found some painkillers. Our EMT buddy, he's not an EMT, I'm sorry, he's a fireman with good training, was able to wrap her ankle, and she finished that race. So to you, Jay, great job. I still am floored by your performance, that after what happened on the way to the bus and at the finish line, you were there. So you crossed the start line, you crossed the finish line, even after the injury, even after that big scare. Man, great freaking job. We are all so proud of you for that. So anyway, so we had that little bit getting onto the bus. We're on the bus. We're kind of worrying about our teammate there, but we're shooting the breeze. We're talking. It's funny because anytime you get a bunch of runners together, you know what they talk about. Oh, I did this race. Have you done this race? Oh, I did that race. I PR'd that race. How about this race? I went there and did that race. We're just talking about races, and I love it. I'm here for it anytime. So we're on the bus. We get to Hopkinton. We get out. It is cold. And I wouldn't say it's like crazy windy, but there's definitely a little breeze, and it's directly in our faces. It's rainy, dreary, drizzly. If you look at any of the pictures, you can just see it was kind of a miserable day to run a race. But we got to wait inside. We all got to grab, water and a Gatorade. One of our teammates brought a blanket that they didn't care about. So we're just sitting on the floor of this building on a blanket. They put the race on the projector screen. So we watched the elite start. We're just kind of waiting for our turn. Every once in a great while, the guy comes in. He announces, if you are in wave 1, it's time to head to the start line. If you are in wave 2, it's time to head to the start line. And anytime a wave would leave, everyone would start clapping. Woo! And so that was really cool. And then finally, wave 4, time to head to the start line. And that was us. Everyone, all the charity people, were all wave 4. We all collect our stuff. We head out the door, and we start the long walk through Athletes Village all the way to the start line in Hopkinton. And that was, they say it's a quarter-mile walk. No, I'm going to put it closer to half a mile from when we left that building to when we got to the massive humanity that was the start line. But it was really cool. Got to the start line. I took a picture, again, you can see it online, of the sign that says it all starts here, welcome to Hopkinton. I will say one thing, that sign is a lot smaller than I thought it was. Every time I saw it on a video or on a picture of it or something, I thought it was a really huge sign. It was actually really small, so I'm glad I was able to kind of get an angle and take a picture of it. But we were wave 4, and then we were corral 1. So we were the first of wave 4 that got to start. And we were there at the start line, man. Like, they have grandstands set up. There are people cheering on all sides, and it was go time. So right at 11:15, that was our time to start. They didn't even count down. Just bam. And what's really cool is they fire a musket. It is a musket that starts you along the course. So yes, you hear a shot, but it's a very interesting sounding one. But yeah, we're standing there just kind of stretching out, getting ready, and then boom, it was go time. So the race is on. What they will tell you, what everyone will tell you about this, and I realize I'm already getting close to the end of our half hour, but I'm just going to keep going. You can choose to listen or not. Hopefully you're still listening. So we go, and what they say is the first 10K is very downhill, and a lot of runners will, they'll be cruising along and making great time, and they'll really press it, and they'll flame out after the first 10K. They will have gone out too fast, which we all know is a mistake that runners will make, and you don't want to make that mistake, but a lot of us make that mistake, and I still make that mistake in most races. So I was really, really stinking mindful to not go out too fast. So I went out at a good speed, and I am cruising along. Now, again, this race is over 30,000 runners running on a very average road. So it is packed. I mean, it is just, pardon the expression, this is what I use, earmuffs if you have kids. It is elbows to assholes out there. It is just full of people. And so we're running along, and honestly, there was just nowhere to hide. Like, there was nowhere to go. You had to move with the crowd or risk being trampled on at that point. So there are people just kind of passing you all over the place, people who are going out super fast, or who are of a good ability level, but maybe they came through a charity, so they were in corral 4 or corral 3 or 2 or something. They might just be running a faster marathon. That's a thing. So they are flying by on all sides. You're getting passed everywhere. People are bumping into each other. It is just a wall of people moving down this road to start the race. And honestly, that race did not thin out until, honestly, mile 8. Mile 8 was like the first time I felt like there was any breathing room out there whatsoever. So we're cruising along, and yeah, that first 10K, I can see how people flame out on it. Now, thankfully, because of where we run here in Kansas City, it very much felt like a Rock the Parkway kind of a thing. Because, yeah, there were some rolls, there were some ups and downs, and I feel like those hills here will slow me down and make me kind of think about what I'm doing. I don't ever go full bore up these kind of hills. And again, if you think about Rock the Parkway, if you've done it, the hill that takes you up to mile 12, there was about 2 of those in the first 10K of the Boston Marathon. So again, it was enough to kind of keep me under control, which is good. I need all the help I can get. So we make it through the first 10K, cruising along. I'm passing the timing mats. I'm seeing how we're going along. Everything is feeling great. The thing about this is, it is not shoulder to shoulder on crowd support. There were definitely some dead spots out there. Everyone raves about the Boston crowd, and I get it, and they were great. But there were definitely some dead spots. So especially in this little bit before you get closer to actual Boston, there were some times where you just it's you and other runners. But the Boston Marathon does great with aid stations. There was an aid station every mile. After a mile marker, you knew a water station was coming up. It wasn't this every 2 or every 2.5, or sometimes it's 1, or sometimes it's 2.5, or sometimes it's 3, and it alternates. No. After every mile marker, there was an aid station. And every aid station was manned to its fullest with people handing out Gatorades and waters. Honestly, I think I might have drank too much along that course, but you're not going by a lot of historical spots. You're cruising along, man. You're doing your thing. You're running your race. You get to the halfway point. Everything's doing well. Like, I did not find the course overly difficult. Now, what I was always told is that the real problems start in Newton. So Newton's a town, and the Newton Hills are what gets a lot of people. And you know what? They were right. At about mile 17, I look and I'm like, whoa, that is one heck of an uphill in front of me. So I'm heading up, and I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? Where did all this go? Oh, I'm in Newton. These are the Newton Hills. And the Newton Hills are a constant thing until after mile 20 and a half. Because at mile about 20 and a half, I think it's 20.6, is the famed Heartbreak Hill. And I'm going up this stinking hill, and I'm wondering why I'm struggling with it so much. And I look down at my Apple Watch to see where I'm at distance-wise, and I see where I am. Like, oh, I'm on Heartbreak Hill. And then it takes on a whole new thing. It's like, suddenly I'm not mad at this hill. It's like, suddenly I want to experience this hill. Like, okay, this is officially Heartbreak Hill. So I'm looking around. I'm taking it in, a lot of fans, a lot of crowd support on Heartbreak Hill. And then I see this flag sign, sticking straight up out of the ground. It says Heartbreak Hill. Ah, cool. And then the Boston Marathon did the dirtiest thing anyone's ever done to me. They put photographers on Heartbreak Hill. All right, listen, I am not an elite runner. I will never sit here and pretend like I run all 26.2 miles of a marathon, because I don't. And I like to use the uphills to walk and try and catch my breath and not die a quick, sudden death by running up a hill. So when you put photographers on Heartbreak Hill, that means I now have to run part of it. Because if I see a photographer, I will not be walking past them. I will always try and run. Now, if you hide a photographer, he might catch me walking. And out of 118 pictures they took of me at the Boston Marathon, and yes, I bought my picture package, there's only one where one of them caught me walking. Boo. So anyway, if I see a photographer going up Heartbreak Hill, I run. After that, I walk. Thankfully, at the very top of the hill, there's this nice banner that goes across that says you've completed Heartbreak Hill, or you're done with Heartbreak Hill, or something like that. So you know that it's done. After that, you get a great downhill. That was a great way to kind of make up some time, was to head down the downhill after Heartbreak Hill. And then after Heartbreak Hill, that's when you start kind of getting into Boston. Like, the buildings start to change a little bit. It's not feeling like the suburbs. It's definitely not rural. The buildings are starting to get a little taller. The roads are starting to get a little crappier. And you know that you're starting to get into Boston. So we keep moving along. And somebody asked me to address this, and I will, and I'm going to address it by saying I don't really know. Apparently, the Boston Marathon got in, well, not the marathon itself. The Boston Police Department got a little bit of a brouhaha. They had a big force at a certain point after Heartbreak Hill that was holding back a crowd. The crowd was largely Black/African American. They, when I went past, were just super excited, going super crazy, super loud, super supportive, super everything. I did not see a problem. Me personally, there was no problem with me. They were cheering everyone on. It was great. So I can't tell you why there was that extra police presence there. If something had happened previously, I'm not privy to it. So I know people wanted me to address it because it made the news. And all I can say is I don't know. All I saw were people having fun. So that was my view from where I was at that point in the race of that situation. It occurred to me as I was running by. It's like, wow, there's a lot of cops here. I wonder why. And then that was all I thought of it until I heard the news after the fact. So I'm sorry I can't get more into that. And I'm certainly not venturing any opinions or suggestions. I'm telling you, I don't know. I noticed it, but I don't know why it was a thing. So there we go. I have addressed the big brouhaha from the Boston Marathon. So continue on. Again, we're getting into downtown at about mile 22. My watch decided to stop with my GPS, which really stunk. I thought it was still going. So when I looked down, I thought, holy cow, I am going to hit a PR on a full marathon. This is great. So I'm really trying to hightail it to the end. Turns out with my watch stopped, I was really off on my time. So I did not PR the Boston Marathon. I was about 5 minutes after my PR time, which kind of stinks. I was close. If I had known how close I was, maybe I could have tried to shave off that 5 minutes if possible. But I'll tell you, I was hurting by the end. But continuing on, we've got about 2 miles left. The 2 miles, you come to the big overpass that has the Boston Strong painted on it. That was really cool. And then after that overpass, we picked up on the street where the 5K was on Saturday. And so, like, once we hit that, it's like, oh, I know exactly where I am. And so I'm cruising along, we're cruising along. I go down under that bridge. Now, the bridge was nothing but a scream fest on Saturday at the 5K, but now it's much quieter as people are just trying to finish. Because after you come up from that bridge, go a little bit down the road, and there it is. Right on Hereford, left on Boylston Street. And I knew it was coming. Because I did the 5K, I knew it was coming. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be crazy. And the crowd is there, and the crowd is still, even, with where I'm at, they're still going nuts. They're still loud. I'm sure it thinned a lot because, again, it was bad weather. Like, there was a rainstorm while I was out there. Like, we got nailed. There was, at no point in time after I started running the race was I dry. I was soaked the entire time because even after the big rainstorm, it's still so humid and misty. You never dried off. But anyway, I digress. So I come up under the bridge, and I take the right on Hereford. And the right on Hereford, that's where I kind of slowed down. I even took it to a walk because Hereford's kind of an uphill. And I'm doling out high fives because these people are, super supportive and happy. And so I'm trying to catch my breath because I know down on the left on Boylston Street, I want to be able to finish strong. So I'm trying to gain everything I can back. And again, we're at the end. This is like the last half mile, I think Boylston is, or maybe it's just a quarter mile. So I'm giving out high fives. I'm breathing. I'm hitting the last water stop. And then I thought, you know what? This could be kind of fun. I turn left on Boylston. I take my phone out of my little running belt and I go live on Facebook. And again, I'm sorry if it's a super shaky picture, but I wanted you guys to kind of share that experience with me. And I don't know. I don't know how best to describe it. When you turn left, you see the finish line, you see the people, you know that's where the bombs went off. Like, I got super emotional at that point. I honestly wanted to Usain Bolt sprint that entire street, but I know my body wasn't going to allow it. I just wanted to run. Like, I felt everything just surging. And so I take off, as you can tell in the video, and I'm trying to kind of show both sides of the crowd, and everyone's screaming, people are yelling. Again, thinner crowd, but that's okay. And I actually had to bring myself down for a second and catch my breath, because I knew I wanted that one last kick. And then with just a little bit left and the finish line directly in front, the last kick. And I take it as hard as I can. That was everything I had left to get us across the finish line. And it was great. You hit the timing mat. They announced my name. They said, Kyle Walker from Shawnee, Kansas. So that was great. And my name even flashed up on the finish line banner. And I don't think I caught it with my phone because I didn't see it in time. I just caught the last glimpse of it up there. But they flash your name across when you finish. They announce you. And I crossed the finish line, taking pictures, the dorky thumbs up in the air because, hey, thumbs up is kind of my thing. That's my jam. And I finished the race. And it was awesome. I know there were a lot of people commenting on the live video and a lot of people sending messages. And trust me, I saw all those. And thank you so much. You guys helped me get across that. But yeah, I was soaked. I was freezing. I was exhausted. But man, I'll tell you, I felt it coming down Boylston Street and just knowing the people were cheering for me and just knowing that people were watching my live video and then the crowd itself, like everything just carried me to that finish line. And it was all 10,000% worth it. Everything, the fundraising, the worry, the travel, the just trying to figure out how I was going to make this work, how I was going to raise the money. All of you made this so worth it. And to cross that finish line, it felt great. I mean, there's just no other way about it. I can't find better words. Crossing that finish line was everything, to the point, like as I sit here now, I don't know what to do. I honestly don't know what's next. Boston has been a dream of mine for 13 years since I started running, because anyone who runs a full marathon or takes this running thing even mildly seriously, everyone at least at some point in time has thought about Boston. Thought, how am I going to qualify? Or how am I going to raise the funds? Like, I feel like to be taken serious as a marathon runner, you kind of have to do Boston. And if you've never felt that way, then great. I mean, hey, good on you. But I know I have. I've been thinking about this ever since I started. It's like, I want people to take me seriously as a runner, knowing that I am a back of the pack runner. And for a lot of times, I was a 300-pound runner. I was a big guy. And every time I tell someone that I've run a marathon, I get that scoff. I get that disbelief. It's like, listen, person, whoever you might be, yeah, I don't look like a runner. I get that. And even still, I've dropped a lot of weight and I still don't look like a runner. I understand all that. But just because you don't look like a runner doesn't mean you aren't one. And so it was always my goal to get to Boston to kind of show people, hey, it doesn't matter who you are and what you look like. You can do this. And that's what I did. And so now that Boston is done, I am trying to reevaluate what I want from my, the future of my running career. I don't know what that is. I'm still working on it. I hope to find something. But you guys all got me here. We got it done. And yeah, it's very strange now that it's over, trying to figure out what's next. Because there's no more fundraising. There's no more begging people for money. There's no more training for Boston. There's no more planning Boston. There's no more, hey, I can't wait until you talk about the Boston episode. This is the Boston episode because it's all done now. And it's very odd. It's a very odd feeling to try and figure out what's next. I hope to figure it out. I know that as of right now, I still have my spot in the Berlin Marathon. And that's coming up in September. I want the 6 World Marathon Majors. And so I've got Berlin in September. We've got London. I'm back in the lottery for that. And then Tokyo, trying to figure that out. I want those, but they're not Boston. And now we have Boston. And it's a hell of a feeling, my friends. I hope you guys feel some of it too, because you guys were all very instrumental in putting me here. You guys made this possible so that I could share this experience. And I hope this episode has done that. I hope you feel like you were a part of it, because honestly, in my heart and my mind, you guys were. You guys all put me here. You're the reason I was here. If I wasn't doing this running podcast, maybe it wasn't as important. I mean, I wanted to do Boston, but now over this last year of doing the show, I want to do more and more races so that I can share them with you. And I know that probably sounds weird, but that's kind of how I see my running career now. I want to do more so that I can tell you guys about it, so that we can talk about it, and so that we can, just kind of advertise that we as back of the pack runners, those of us that are, and look, I know we've got front of the pack runners who listen, middle of the pack runners who listen. I named this Back of the Pack podcast because that's how it pertains to me, but we got people of all skill levels who listen to this podcast, and I love you for it. But I want to show everyone that a guy who, quote unquote, doesn't look like a runner, man, I run and I do this stuff and I do these races and I want to do them at the highest level possible. And now we have done Boston, and we're going to keep looking for that next thing to do, that next mountain to climb, because we're not going to stop, because we're runners. We don't stop. We don't stop when we should. We don't stop when we're injured. We don't stop when we're tired. We run these races, and I want to keep running these races so that we can talk about them and we can just show the world this is what we do and this is how we do it. Now, your approval is not needed, because we going to get it done. So look, if there's anything else about the Boston Marathon I didn't touch on that you guys want to hear about, shoot me a message and I will cover it 100%. I know a lot of people wanted to hear about the food. Here's the thing. I have a very terrible shellfish allergy. So if I had any of the shellfish, I would go deady by. So I didn't want to do that. So I cannot report much on the fine cuisine of Boston, because I couldn't enjoy what they're best known for. So there's that. Sorry. As for costumes in the race, I saw a very convincing Wonder Woman costume, and I got passed by the guy dribbling basketballs. That makes the second full marathon I've done where I got passed by the guy who does a marathon dribbling a basketball. I said all the bad words to myself when he passed me. And he passed me really quick. He's an athletic guy. So anyway, but yeah, if there's something else you want to know about, I'm happy to discuss. If there's anything I left out, I will add it to the next podcast. A huge thank you to last week's guest, the folks from St. Jude's, for coming on. I saw that our listens were way down on that one. If for some reason you did not catch last week's episode, I'm going to ask you to please go back and listen to it, because we need more listens for that, because it's very important. And we love the folks at St. Jude's, and we are so excited to help them out for the KC Hustle Run again on September 17th. So if you missed last week's episode because you thought, I'm not going to listen, Kyle's out of town, it's pre-recorded, blah, 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 whatever. No. You need to go back. We need to get the numbers up for that episode, because it's super important. As for this, that's going to do it. That's the Boston Marathon, y'all. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to all of you who donated, who shared posts, who spread the word, who helped get me there. You guys made it a wonderful, wonderful experience that I will never forget and probably could never duplicate, because it was a once in a lifetime thing. And I'm so excited and so happy and just overjoyed that we're done. And now it's on to the next, whatever that might be. So we're going to get it figured out. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I am your host, Kyle Walker. My pleasure as always. The show is brought to you by OKKC Sports and produced by Katie O'Neill. We will be back next week with another new episode. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about, and it won't be Boston unless there's something I can answer for you. So anyway, and again, Kelsey, you're awesome. Thank you so much. You made my entire trip. Bye, everyone.